Ready? Okay, so I've been using this camera for about 4 months now. I paid $2,000 for the Fujifilm XT4 and now I'm ready to share my thoughts and tell you whether it is worth the upgrade from the XT3 so you don't have to waste your hard-earned money if you don't want to. Let's get started. Cue's intro. Choo, choo, choo. So like my other Fuji gear related reviews, I'm just going to be talking about my experiences with the camera and if I like the camera and can I recommend this camera to you guys. I've been using this camera for about 4 months now, 5 months maybe. I've done some portraits, some headshots. I used this to film some behind the scenes for a couple of gigs and started creating videos with it, creating more content with it, and I'm ready to give you my thoughts on the camera. Before I start, I just want to talk about the key differences between this camera versus the XT3. Okay, let's start with the build quality of the XT4. Nothing has changed much when it comes to design. The XT4 is just a bit bigger, but other than that, it looks exactly the same with the retro design with the buttons and the dials and the new and improved grip. When you first hold onto it, you notice the grip right away. It sits and fits just right with my hand. I like how they made this thing protrude out a bit more. This is great, and this was something missing from the XT3. I own both cameras, and something I noticed when I would switch back to the XT3 is the lack of grip. That is apparent once you try out the XT4 grip. You get accustomed to a certain lifestyle, and then you'll start being all bougie, wearing fur coats and drinking tea with your pinky finger up in the air. The flip out screen is a welcome addition to the Fuji line. I know some others aren't so thrilled, but for someone like me who has been making videos lately, I love it. It's great for framing myself when I do the talking head segments. I think it's a lot more efficient for creating videos. It was a bit harder for me to frame on XT3. I would also ask Hillary for help framing me up, and then I would ask her to take a photo of that frame on my smartphone to see what it looks like. So there was a lot of wasted time while I was on the XT3 trying to get my framing right. So again, this flippy screen is a great and a welcome addition. Speaking of screen, I love the LCD screen. It is bright, sharp, and the EVF has improved as well. Judging from the eye test, I see that it's much clearer and sharper than the previous XT3. The button dials are the same with one key difference. Now you can toggle to movie mode much faster. And what is great is when you are switching from photos to movies, you are going to get the customized settings with a different interface. So when you are filming, your video settings will stay on your video and your photo settings will stay on photos. Now that I'm creating more content for YouTube, I do like how quick and easy it is. I like how they save my settings for my videos and photos separately. That way you don't have to go back and forth changing your ISO and your shutter speed. And that is a great move by Fujifilm for that feature. Okay guys, right now we are in movie mode. As you can see, the flip is right here. There's an indicator that let us know that we're in movie mode. And then when I press the Q button, all my video settings are here for me. I don't think this is in the XT3. If it is, I can't find it because I've been looking everywhere. So this makes it so much easier. And look what happened when I switch it back to stills. So we're in stills now. And look at when I press the Q, then there's all my settings for photos. And this is what I mean. This is a great feature to have in the XT4. And I don't know if it's out on the XT3 yet. I couldn't find it. When I'm switching between 24 and 60p, 60 frames per second in 4K on the XT3, I have to go back into the menu like this and then just dial in my settings. So I go in menu and then I have to dial in my settings from here. So yeah, I really like the convenience of it doing this way and then just switching it and then getting all my video settings back. Good feature. Let's get on to the IBIS. The IBIS is great for photos. I love that I can lower my shutter speed in low light situations and still get a sharp photo. It is something that needs to be in every Fujifilm flagship cameras moving forward. The XT line, the X Pro line, the X100 line. I think if we're paying thousands of dollars, there has to be IBIS moving forward. If there was one selling point to upgrade to an XT4, it's gotta be the battery life. And this battery is amazing and it is a step up from the crappy battery you get from the XT1, XT2, XT3, X Pro, X Pro 2, X Pro 3, X100F, X100F V, X100FF, X100T, XE3, XT3, XT20, and so on. Can you see how many times they've used this battery in all these cameras? That was my only gripe with Fujifilm for so long, was its battery life. I used to carry like 6 with me to last me the entire day when I was traveling, and batteries aren't cheap. It's like $100 for like one, so imagine buying 2 to 3, but one battery on the XT4 should last a day of shooting. I went out to capture some behind the scenes for this brand Swarovski. I was there for probably 2 to 3 hours doing some photos and video, and it was great. I don't worry about battery life like I do with my XT3. And when I took the X100V out, there was always in the back of my mind that I need to bring extra batteries and I need to be cautious. I have a second battery for the XT4, and the only time I switched to the second battery was when I forgot to charge the first one the night before. So I'm quite confident in the battery life. And again, it's something Fuji should start implementing in the flagship lines moving forward, is implementing this new battery. The autofocusing is a lot quicker than the XT3. Well, that was prior to the firmware update Fujifilm released. More on that later. But I love the focusing system for photos. It's blazing quick, and I love how snappy it is when I'm just trying to focus on something. Another thing that is new on the XT4 is the new film simulations. The bleach bypass, we can just pass on that. I am not a fan. But the new classic negative film simulation, however, I love it. It reminds me of what I would see on a film camera. I love the tones, I love the richness of it. It is my new favorite film simulation now. Let's move on to the video side. I love the image coming out of the XT4. I'm not a pro videographer or a filmmaker by any means, but I do appreciate the quality that comes out of this camera. I shoot 4K in f-log whenever I can, and I just love how easy it is to pull details. I'm not good at color grading, but I know from a few log profiles I played around with, f-log is very easy to work with. The colors coming out from this camera is amazing. You don't need to do any work if you don't want to. Just put on the Eterna film simulation and you got yourself a solid image. I like how when you shoot in different modes, Fuji shows you the crop factor in the flippy screen. When you use OIS and DIS, for example, you have an additional crop and it shows right there on the screen. I really love that feature. The Fujifilm XT4 shoots 4K 60 and 1080p up to 240 frames per second. That is friggin' nuts. The 4K is just beautiful. The 1080 looks great. The 120 frames per second looks good, but the 240 frames per second, to my eyes, it breaks down. There are some crop factors when using different frames, so just be aware so that you don't go crazy and think, why does it look so different? I tested out the 240 frames per second, and I am not a fan of that feature. It just breaks down. I see it's not as sharp as the 4K or the 1080p, and yeah, it just doesn't look good, and it just looks like it was shot with a potato. Yes, Stacy, I think we got it. Yes, keep twirling. All right, I think we got the slow-mo. Let me just review the footage. Son of a... Let's move on some negatives. The IBIS for video. Probably the worst looking thing I've seen on the camera. The IBIS is too jerky. It's doing these wobbles and warping effect. It really annoys me the way it moves. It hurts my head. I think the IBIS gotten a lot better with the firmware updates, but I still see the wobbles. Another thing is the XT4 is always pulsing, and it just annoys me when I'm editing my video. I brought this camera thinking that I'm able to vlog with this camera, but I don't trust the IBIS. I know the Fuji apologists will say, well, it's not a gimbal. You can't expect great results. Like, bro, listen, I'm not looking for gimbal-like quality, but I am also not looking to be induced with vertigo. And when I'm watching my clips, I am just looking for something that is just going to smooth out my shots. I can live with some micro jitters in my shots, but man, this, I don't think it's that good. I think the Olympus EM1 Mark II has some of the best stabilization in the game. The corners, they do wobble, but it's not as dramatic as something like the XT4. But the IBIS has this feature called boost mode. It works very well if you're holding it statically. It basically acts like a tripod if you're not moving around much. If you stay like this and just hold it, yeah, it'll take great video. Now that I'm creating more content for YouTube, I find myself to be more annoyed with the autofocusing. Again, I love the autofocusing for photos. It's quick and snappy. It can snap onto anybody real fast, but that does not translate well onto video. It would pulsate right before it focuses, and the way it focuses, it's too quick for video. It just looks jittery, like it's on crack, just trying to latch focus on you. It doesn't have that smooth pull like the other camera brands do. I know people are going to say, well, you have to use different lenses, and yes, I know all that already. I try to avoid the older lenses. I use the 16 to 55mm f2.8 when I record video. It just sucks that there's only one lens in the entire Fujifilm lens lineup that is good for making videos. Another negative, the confusing menu system. I find the menu system to be so confusing nowadays. I don't understand all of it. I think this is just personal preference, but I find myself being really overwhelmed with a lot of things in the menu system. I am overwhelmed with a lot of options and customizations in this camera, to the point I don't use any of it. I get analysis paralysis. The side door with the mic issue. So now that I am a famous loser YouTuber, I have to record myself using the flip out screen. But this plastic flappy door always gets in the way when I flip my screen and I attach my mic onto it. It's really annoying that the door is in its way whenever I do this. You see that thing right there, the side thing to let your mic in? Look what happens when I put the mic in. Okay, so once you put the mic jack in and then you're trying to vlog, like there's this piece right here just blocking the way, and it's quite annoying. And then you can't even turn it because now something's in the way. So when you're vlogging, you're not gonna get the full screen, even though it's just a corner. I find that it's quite annoying. I don't like this. I don't like how we're getting blocked by the mic jack and the flappy doors. So yeah, you gotta be careful or you're gonna break your screen. Shooting 4K 60, you have a time limit of 20 minutes. If you're someone who shoots a lot of 4K 60, this may be a problem for you. I find it annoying because I am used to the 30-minute time limit when I shoot 4K 24p, and I was just thinking like, what the hell? So can we like just like remove that? Right? Can we remove all that? Overheating issues. While I was recording 4K videos, I did 2 videos at 4K 30 frames per second. That was probably an hour of filming. I did another 3 videos at 24 frames per second. That was probably another 40 minutes of filming. The camera did heat up. It got hot, but there was no overheating warning that came on in this situation. I would describe it as if you were holding a penny that was standing in the sun for too long, and you start to notice the heat after you press it down on your thumb and your finger to feel that heat, and then you go, ooh, boy, that's a hot penny, and then you put it back in your pocket, and then you go on about your day. That's how hot it is. Also, I filmed a tutorial in 4K 60, and I filmed almost 40 minutes worth of footage, and the overheating warning came on to the screen for that. So again, that is something you should know if you're going to be using this frame rate often. A lot of people say there wasn't any overheating issues, but I got it to come on my flip out screen when I was recording. So something you guys should know once again. But with all that said and done, do I think it's worth upgrading from the XT3? And this is for me only, though. Like, this is again, personal preference. I'm going to say no, and here's why. The XT4 has the same sensor as the XT3. With the latest firmware updates, the XT3's autofocusing speed is of an XT4. The only thing you're really missing now is the IBIS and the battery life. And I think if you have multiple battery lives from the previous iterations, I think you guys should hold off until the XT5. Now you're going to have to ask yourself if the IBIS and the new battery, flippy screen, and the new improved ergonomics is worth the premium price tag. I would also tell you, instead of upgrading to the XT4, maybe use that money to upgrade your kit. Buy some lenses, maybe some ND filters, diffusion filters, maybe buy some lighting, some flash, some strobe, some modifiers, tripods, a gimbal. Like honestly, with the new firmware updates, you're getting the same performance as the XT4. You're not getting the new film simulations, but the new film simulations isn't worth the price tag. However, if you're coming from something that is much older than the XT3, like the XT2, the XT20, the XT1, the XE1, XE2, X Pro 1, X Pro 2, or any of those cameras, something along those lines, and you have the budget for this camera, I feel there's enough improvements making it worth the upgrade. I think you're getting a lot of value for your money if you're coming from something a lot older than the XT3. I think there is a lot to offer in this camera. Again, I do mostly photos, but I'm trying to get more into video, so I'm beginning to appreciate the video specs a lot more. And if they pack this much feature into the camera, I can't wait to see what they put in the XH2 coming down the road. And that is it for me, guys. Are you guys going to upgrade to the XT4, or are you guys going to wait until the XT5 or the XH2? I love the XT4. I've been having a lot of fun with it recently, and I just love that I can create content on this camera. It's a solid camera. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Maybe if we can get to 1,000 subs in the next couple of months, I'll do something stupid, like eat something really spicy so you can all laugh at my misery, or I can record myself counting up to 1,000 as a celebration for hitting 1,000 subs. I don't know if you guys have any idea what I should do, something stupid, something silly to entertain y'all. I'll do it within reasons. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. And my name is Tongue, and I'll see you in the next video. I love you. Okay, bye. Ooh.